Welcome back to part 2 of Did Machiavelli Get It Wrong? The science says yes. Ever wonder why dictatorships seem to have a shorter and shorter shelf life? It's not just your imagination. Across history, regimes built on fear follow a predictable path. A quick rise, a shaky period of control, and then a sudden, spectacular collapse. Political scientists have even charted this out. On average, an authoritarian regime lasts about 17 years. That's less time than it takes for a single democratic transition cycle. Think about it. Fear gets you obedience, but it never gets you true alignment. Once people get tired of being afraid, compliance doesn't just fade, it plummets. It's like every dictator dies twice. Once when their heart stops, and a second time when the system they built forgets how to obey. The game has fundamentally changed, and the biggest disruptor is information. Machiavelli, the original master of manipulation, thrived in the dark. Back then, knowledge traveled at the speed of a horse. Today, data zips across oceans in less than a second. A recent Stanford study on governance found a direct link between how much we trust our institutions and how transparent they are. It has nothing to do with how much propaganda they pump out. In our world, secrecy isn't a shield anymore. It's an admission of guilt. We live in an age of constant documentation emails, security cameras, metadata. Every lie you tell is like accumulating radioactive waste. It has a half-life, and it will eventually poison you. You can only rule through fear until the first damning screenshot goes viral. This isn't just about politics. It's about economics. In the old world, fear was seen as a tool to maximize output. Scare your workers, and they'll comply. But modern economies don't run on compliance. They run on the speed of collaboration. The 2024 Edelman Trust Barometer put a number on this. For every 10-point jump in stakeholder trust, a company's market value becomes 7% more stable. Investors don't follow intimidation. They follow integrity. When a leader manipulates, they actually reduce their own options. When they're transparent, they create more possibilities. In the grand scheme of things, fear is inflationary. It devalues every promise, every contract, and every relationship. Just look at the corporate graveyards of the last 2 decades. Companies like Enron, Tyrannos, and Wirecard were all ruled by secrecy and fear, and they all imploded for the same reason. They got caught in a feedback loop of deception. First, you tell a lie to protect your image. Then, you demand compliance to hide the lie. Eventually, the whole thing collapses under its own weight. Whistleblower data from these companies shows the internal panic. With every passing quarter, the lie gets heavier than the actual financial ledger. Fear chokes the flow of information, and information is the oxygen that allows any organization to correct its course and survive. But here's the beautiful part. Our digital society has evolved its own immune system. We can call it collective witness. We have crowdsourced verification, open-source data, and decentralized ledgers like blockchain. All of this means that any attempt at large-scale manipulation is basically self-terminating. An MIT study found that a lie on the internet has a half-life of about 4 hours before it starts getting exposed. The more a leader tries to hide, the faster the algorithms of collective intelligence hunt for the truth. Power based on fear simply can't outrun our collective brain anymore. And there's a deep psychological cost to all this. Living under constant threat, whether you're the one in charge or the one being ruled, is exhausting. Cognitive behavioral studies show that chronic vigilance, always being on guard, can reduce your functional IQ by as much as 13 points. Leaders who are addicted to control suffer from empathy erosion and their sleep patterns collapse. The people under them develop learned helplessness, which eventually turns into apathy. An empire of numb, tired minds can't innovate. It can only imitate what used to work, right up until the moment it goes extinct. This brings us to a concept from complexity theory. Back in 2011, a scientist named Yanir Bariam explained that distributed networks like the Internet or a modern company outperform rigid, top-down hierarchies once the amount of information in the system passes a certain point. Well, we blew past that threshold around 2010. Ever since, every attempt to centralize power and control information has been met with chaos. Misinformation spirals out of control, morale tanks, and your best people leave. The old Machiavellian pyramid is structurally incapable of processing the complexity of the 21st century. Control creates bottlenecks, and bottlenecks kill adaptability. And in today's world, adaptability is the new currency of survival. Sociologically, something fascinating has happened. Fear used to be a tool to unify a population against a common enemy. But now, it just fragments us. Social cohesion studies show that high-anxiety societies break down into smaller, warring tribes. This destroys the large-scale cooperation needed to solve big problems. So when a modern leader tries to weaponize fear, they end up creating echo chambers that eventually consume their own legitimacy. Each propaganda campaign gives birth to a counter-movement. The more you try to suppress an idea, the faster it spreads sideways. It's the new physics of the information age. In this new world, attention has replaced gold as the most valuable resource. Manipulation spends that attention. Authenticity and transparency mint it. Behavioral economists have found that brands perceived as transparent have a 68% higher long-term engagement rate. Why? Because they connect with us through trust, not shock. Fear can hijack your attention for a moment, but it leaves a bad taste. It gives you a spike of dopamine, but it collapses your long-term serotonin. No algorithm and no person ultimately favors what they subconsciously want to avoid. The nature of power itself has been inverted. In Machiavelli's time, power came from having a monopoly on information. You knew things others didn't. Today, true power comes from managing the flow of information. The best leaders are those who create clarity, not those who try to maintain control. The modern leader wields dashboards and data, not daggers and spies. They use feedback loops, not informant networks. The Prince 2.0 isn't a manipulator. They're a systems architect, designing transparency that moves faster than deceit can ever spread. Ultimately, this is about the kind of world we want to live in. Cultural analysts like Jonathan Haidt have shown that societies become stable and flourish when the collective emotion trends towards gratitude and trust, not fear. Fear narrows our empathy. It makes us selfish and short-sighted. Gratitude, on the other hand, expands our prosocial behavior by about 20%. Any state, company, or movement that understands this math becomes anti-fragile. It actually gets stronger with openness and challenges. Machiavellian fear, by its very design, is fragile. All it takes is one exposed secret to detonate the entire illusion. So, every manipulative structure contains the seeds of its own destruction. Deceit requires constant energy to maintain, and in the long run, entropy always wins. The second law of thermodynamics doesn't just apply to physics. It applies to psychology. A closed system will always decay. A closed mind is the first and smallest dictatorship. But an open network is self-correcting and self-healing. The renaissance of transparency didn't kill Machiavelli. It just made him irrelevant. As a modern manifesto might say, fear built walls, information built mirrors. The wall's purpose ended the day the mirror became global. Continue watching if this resonated with you. We are entering the final chapter. For centuries, we've had one single, terrifyingly effective playbook for power, Machiavelli's The Prince. It taught us that power was a game of shadows, manipulation, and control. One mind, the puppet master, pulling the strings of many. But what if I told you that playbook is now obsolete? That its rules don't just fail in the modern world, they actively work against you. The age of the puppet master is over. In our interconnected, transparent world, manipulation is no longer a hidden art. It's a visible glitch, an energy signature that screams out of sync. Modern society doesn't respond to puppeteers anymore. It synchronizes with resonance. The new leader isn't a puppet master. They're a conductor, uniting minds through rhythm, not strings. This isn't philosophy. It's physics. Neuroscientist Carl Friston's work shows our brains are wired to seek coherence, not dominance. When things align, stress drops and trust soars. So, leadership today isn't about controlling information, but about aligning interpretation. The greatest power is now the ability to reduce cognitive friction in others. Forget everything you think you know about power, wealth, armies, influence by manipulation. True power today is energy management. Every system, from your own mind to a global corporation, is an energy economy. Fear drains it. Clarity channels it. Research in organizational neuroscience shows that leaders who create resonant environments don't just make people feel good. They boost group performance by up to 38%. They don't threaten, they tune. The old Machiavellian model was about consuming attention. A conscious leader creates it. Energy misused for control decays into resistance. Energy invested in understanding becomes momentum. That's not a motivational quote. That's thermodynamics with empathy. This brings us to the new infrastructure of power, emotional intelligence. Daniel Goleman's research made it quantifiable. EQ predicts a staggering 58% of professional success, far more than IQ. Machiavelli wrote for kings who ruled over subjects. Emotional intelligence speaks to creators who lead equals. Think of it like this. Fear compresses your communication bandwidth. Empathy expands it. Neuroscientifically, the bonding hormone oxytocin literally increases neural synchronization between a leader and their team. Trust has become a neuroelectric interface. A modern leader doesn't ask, "How do I control them?" They ask, "How do I connect with them?" The moment empathy becomes your strategy, power stops being a zero-sum game and becomes a resonance field where every mind is a valued node, not a pawn. In Machiavelli's time, power thrived in secrecy because knowledge was scarce. Today, the new weapon is the exact opposite: transparency. The new elite don't hoard data, they design visibility. When everyone sees the same map, manipulation simply dies from redundancy. In physics, light disintegrates shadow. In society, transparency annihilates tyranny. A few centuries ago, hiding knowledge made you irreplaceable. Today, sharing it makes you indispensable. The game has completely inverted. Every time you explain with clarity what others try to obscure, you gain a gravitational pull. People orbit clarity, and in a confused world, clarity's the ultimate power source. So, from all this evidence, a new code of conscious power emerges, defined by 3 simple laws. Law 1. Self-coherence before strategy. Power begins as internal order. Your ability to lead others is a direct reflection of your own inner state. Neurophysiology confirms that a coherent rhythm between your heart and brain predicts accurate decision-making under stress. You cannot control the world outside if chaos rules within. Law 2. Transparency over control. Manipulation seeks compliance, but transparency earns calibration. Every lie you tell carries an entropy cost. It requires energy to maintain. Truth maintains itself. The transparent leader doesn't fight chaos. They let clarity sort it out. And Law 3. Trust as leverage. Leverage used to be about capital or hierarchy. Now it's about credibility. In our digital world, a trusted signal compounds faster than any financial instrument. Reputation is the new liquidity. The wise no longer play games with it. This is the great shift. From ruling to resonating. Fear creates subjects who comply. Empathy creates participants who contribute. When leadership evolves from domination to synchronization, the collective intelligence of a group skyrockets. MIT's Center for Collective Intelligence proved this. Teens with higher empathy consistently outperformed high IQ teams. Compassion now outcompetes calculation. This is why old Machiavellian structures are imploding. They suppress the very human bandwidth that evolution now rewards. Imagine two leaders in a crisis. One issues threats. The other cultivates coherence. The first wins compliance for a day. The second builds resilience for a decade. History and evolution remember efficiency. And the highest form of this efficiency is detachment. Every manipulator is terrified of loss. Every conscious leader embraces impermanence. Old power was defensive, obsessed with holding on. Modern power is creative, obsessed with flow. Neuroscience shows that detachment, letting go of the need to control every outcome, actually activates parts of the brain responsible for long-term insight and innovation. By letting go, your mind accesses a higher order of problem-solving. The ancient Stoics knew this. Control what you can. Interpret the rest. That isn't resignation. It's optimization. The energy you conserve by accepting what is becomes the energy you can use to design what could be. This approach scales up into what we can call systemic empathy. Empathy is no longer a soft skill. It's a network protocol. In our global economy, relationships are data lines. When empathy collapses, the signal distorts. Deals fail, innovation stalls, communities fragment. As John Maxwell said, people buy into the leader before they buy into the vision. That simple truth has outlived the prince because it's empirically verifiable. Without that emotional connection, even genius dissolves into noise. The most powerful people today don't dictate outcomes. They design feedback loops that heal the system faster than it can harm itself. Ultimately, this changes our idea of legacy. Machiavelli's princes built monuments to themselves. Modern architects build systems that regenerate. Monuments crumble, but systems evolve. A true legacy isn't inheritance. It's recursion. It's building something that functions without your constant control, something that keeps learning long after you're gone. This is the drive for transcendence, the need to create an impact beyond your own self-interest. When a leader operates from this place, their influence becomes algorithmic, self-replicating without manipulation. That is the immortality Machiavelli never foresaw. So we stand at a turning point. The throne of deceit has collapsed under the weight of its own data. Fear's empire is gone. Information has crowned awareness king. The new sovereign is invisible. It exists in the coherence between minds, not in dominance over them. Power is no longer the privilege of the ruthless. It's the art of the regulated. The modern leader's creed is simple. Control nothing, coordinate everything, command no one, inspire everyone. Machiavelli didn't lie. He just described the physics of a bygone era. But his equations expired the moment humanity gained widespread self-awareness. Fear only works in the dark, and we have built a civilization of light. Machiavelli studied men to control them. We study ourselves to transcend them. And that is how the story of manipulative power truly ends, and how our story begins. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with you, like and consider subscribing for more insights into the future of leadership and consciousness.